Pat Johnson, this is your hour. Please, everyone, give a big hand for Pat Johnson and her presentation entitled Lead from the Heart.
Thank you, Mr. Program Quality Director, fellow Toastmasters and friends of District 71. I'm curious as to where you stand when it comes to those all-important discussions of what is management versus what is leadership. And there's as many interpretations or definitions of that as there are people in my experience. I would propose that both management and leadership is important when we take on roles of leadership. There's many things to manage, but there's also a time when we need to step forward and lead. And today I want to talk about some of the skills and some of the traits, more in particular, that I've discovered are very valuable in leading. So we need those management skills, but we want to look at who are we when we lead. So I'm curious from each one of you, I'm going to ask you to write into the chat so that I can see and you can share with one another who stands out in your mind, whether it's somebody that you've known personally, somebody you've read about, somebody you've heard about, who represents outstanding leadership. Can be somebody local, could be in your family, could be globally. So if you'll share with me who you think stands out for you as a leader. So I'll just watch chat for a moment. Okay, so got Nelson Mandela, he's a popular choice. Steve Jobs, yes. Mel Robbins, Prime Minister of New Zealand, my boss, Joe Biden. Simon Sinek, start with the Y, absolutely very popular at the moment, a couple of those. Barack Obama, great, some people have been watching the American news. Winston Churchill, yes, so it doesn't have to be current. We look at people and it's interesting. Somebody chose their mother, yes, or my late grandfather. So one of the things that I know in my experience, one of my leaders that stands out in my mind is my great aunt. Not because she was famous, but she stood for such amazing qualities in my life. And she stood for such strength and integrity. She was herself. She worked hard, I think, or never knew how to be otherwise than to be authentic. You always got the full of who Pearl was, my great aunt. So I see Mahatma Gandhi, Colin Powell, Jacinda Ardern, okay, Chopra, and then Oprah. Somebody's into rhyming with their leaders. So I ask you to keep in mind these people that come to mind when you think of an outstanding leader as we talk about the traits, and see if they actually demonstrate these traits. Now, as I want to speak to you about leadership and leading from your heart, I want to say up front that one of the things that I've discovered is that leadership is a unique journey for every one of us. We all start at a different place, different skills, different backgrounds, different experiences, different education, different cultures, coming from different families, different family values. And we step forward to lead in Toastmasters, lead in our families, lead in our communities, even lead in a new golfing themed Toastmaster club, which seems to be quite the rage in Ireland at the moment, or at least in District 71. Let's not limit it to Ireland. So I want to share just a quotation quickly from John Maxwell. And he said that leadership is influence, nothing more and nothing less. People have so many misconceptions about leadership. And he went on to say, When they hear that someone has an impressive title or an assigned leadership position, they assume that he or she is a leader. Sometimes that is true, but titles don't have much value when it comes to leading. True leadership cannot be awarded, appointed, or assigned. It comes only from influence, and that cannot be mandated. It must be earned. And I'm curious, when you look at the people that you registered with in terms of leaders that stand out in your mind, that if they earned that leadership role, and I would say the ones that I've read off that chat box absolutely earned that. So let's dive into some of the traits that stand out for me from my experience. And I'm going to share the screen occasionally, and then I'll stop sharing it also. So be patient as we do this. Thank you. So lead with your heart. So let's look at what the element is of heart. I believe that this is one thing that is essential to come to, just let me put this so that it's better. There we go. So I believe that heart is so important for us to bring to our leadership journey. We need to be brave enough to find our inner voice so that when we're authentic and we're willing to express ourselves and bring all of us, not just our heads, but bring our hearts to leadership, that's when we start to connect. That's when people experience us as a human being, not necessarily a human doer. And what I know in life is that we're often acknowledged for all those things that we do. But who are we as human beings when we lead? And so as we bring our heart to leadership, it's so important. Now, one of you actually acknowledged Steve Jobs, and I've got a quotation from Steve Jobs, which reminds me that we need to bring our heart to leadership. As Steve Jobs wrote, "Don't let the noise of other people's voices drown out your own inner voice. And most important, have the courage to follow your heart and intuition." He went on to say, and I'm going to read this quotation, "Through your heart, you understand your greatest desire and passion, and through the heart, you find spontaneity and creativity to break through everyday restrictions in your life and imagination, to be fully engaged. When you open your heart, your whole world changes. It opens around you. You see yourself as part of a friendly universe, one full of possibility, one that is generating and regenerating as a positive energy." So I believe that when we look at those people that we admire as leaders, I believe, and I challenge you to consider, did they come with their heart? The second trait that I believe is so important when we look at leadership traits is vision. I'm going to stop that so I can actually connect with you. So vision is seeing beyond what is right today and seeing what's in the future. We often refer to this as strategic planning. It's important as a leader. One of the most important roles that we fulfill as a leader, whether it's in our family, whether it's in global, whether it's head of our Toastmaster club, is to hold the vision. Just as our district director said so beautifully earlier on today, we want to be Smedleys. That's our vision. It doesn't mean that's the only option, but that's the vision that we have, to reach, to challenge ourselves, to not sit back and just be complacent. Having a vision, the beautiful part of a vision is that it pushes us out of our comfort zone. One of the things that I've experienced in Toastmasters is once we get that icebreaker over with, we start to develop this nice, comfortable bubble where we sit back and we go, okay, I really like my club members. I like my teammates, and we all get along well. And I know my style for presenting, and I'm really comfortable. As a leader, I challenge you. If you are comfortable in that bubble, time to break out. Time to get back into that experience that we had when we were doing icebreaker, to get into that space of being uncomfortable, where we're challenging ourselves to continually learn and grow as leaders. Years ago, I learned that when I was uncomfortable, that's when I was learning. That's when I was growing. That's when I was developing as a leader. And so I encourage you to connect with your why. Figure out what your current why is. Develop that vision for your own personal development, for your area, your division, your district, and put that vision out there. We know that Oprah never shows up without having a vision of where she's going, the impact she'll have on the world, the things that she has to say that are within her passion, her potential. We know that Mahatma Gandhi had a great vision for the world, different than it was. And I'm sure he didn't have a total roadmap when he launched out, but each day it unfolded because he had that long-term goal. Connect to your personal why, as Simon Sinek asks us to do all the time. Connect with that. Build a plan around your why and continue to grow. There was, just to share a personal example of mine, and because I've been in Toastmasters in April, it'll be 38 years that I've been involved in this learning program. I'm a living example of nobody graduates from Toastmasters. Some people ask me if I've got lost and I can't find the exit, but I haven't learned all that there is to learn yet. There's always something else. And Region Advisor's been a great learning experience for me. I had a great learning experience as a leader earlier on in my experience in Toastmasters. And that was when I wanted to run for district leadership. I raised my hand. I had moved across Canada from District 64 to District 21. Very different culture. But at that time, I'd been a Toastmaster for about 6 years. I had a DTM. I'd been area and division director in District 64, and I felt pretty experienced, and I felt ready for district leadership. So when I arrived in District 21, I quickly introduced myself, got involved. And at the first general meeting that I attended after arriving in that district, I raised my hand as a floor candidate to be what's now called Club Growth Director. Well, to no surprise to the audience, but I was the only one that was surprised, I was not elected to that office. And at that time, and I'll share some of my inner thoughts, but that they didn't know about, but I went, you don't know what you're missing. I'm a DTM. I would contribute something worthwhile to this district. That was my hurt ego talking, not the real me. And so it went on. I thought, well, okay, great. The fellow that was appointed or elected that year went on. He didn't run the next year for what was then called, which is now called Program Quality Director. And I thought, oh, perfect, I'll sign up. And so I went to the next meeting, and when He didn't put his name forward. I raised my hand and I said, I'll run for that office. Fellow Toastmasters, again, I was not elected. And I went, wow. One of the things I know is that when the student's ready, the teacher appears. And I went, I'm not sure that I really like this teacher, but what do I have to learn? And when I really looked at things, I thought there's a lot of things that I could do, a lot of activities, a lot of contributions, a lot of lessons for me in this district. So I went away from the idea of being involved in district leadership and went, maybe it's not for me. I left and I got involved. I won the district evaluation contest the next year. I got involved as an area and division director again. I chaired a conference. I started presenting at conferences as an education presenter and basically got involved in supporting my district. A few years later, a good friend of mine happened to be the district director at that time, and her club growth director, about 2 weeks after her election, had to leave the country because a parent had got ill and it was their responsibility to care for them. So she phoned me up and she said, Pat, I need you to be my club growth director. And I said, Sheila, I can't do that. I've already run twice in this district and the district didn't vote me in. I will not take an appointment. Now that told me something about my values. And then my good friend said, but Pat, you would be a great district officer. And I said, I believe I would be, but I feel that I need to ask the district to elect me. So I said, I promise you that next year I will run for program quality director again. And as I said, I did the next year run, but I did it differently. I got a campaign manager. I phoned every influential person in my district. I had a representative in every division of the district to speak for me at their meetings, and we were successful. Why we were successful, when I look back now, is because I changed. I grew between who I represented and who I was when I first raised my hand as an option for the district leadership team, and who I was a number of years later when I presented myself. The great learning for me as a leader was that I had to first believe in me before others would vote and believe in me. So I was my greatest barrier. So when we look at those people that we admire as leaders, how many of them first started by believing in themselves? They wouldn't have influenced the world and their environment without first knowing that they were capable and worthy of that. So think of that when you consider those leaders that you look to. The next category that I want to share is personal growth and development. Personal growth and development. When you think of us in the Toastmasters environment, when you think of those world leaders or those people in your immediate family that were leaders and are leaders, think of the personal growth and development that they've experienced. So I want to stop for a moment here, and I want to ask you to share in the chat some of your greatest lessons that you've had in life that have prepared you for leadership. So what has been impactful for you? So for me, it was learning, as I shared in the previous example, that I had to believe in me before others would believe in me. You might think of something that one of your mentors has taught you, or somebody you were mentoring has taught you? What are some of the great lessons that you've learned in your leadership journey? Failure is a stepping stone for success. Not being afraid of failing. Yes. You know, one of the expressions that I've got written in my office is, don't let perfection get in the way of good enough. So it reminds me to just set out. Someone sees something in you that you don't see in yourself. Absolutely. How many of us have been encouraged? And as Dhananjaya, the world champion of public speaking, says, I see something in you. And those are magical words for us. You don't have to get permission from others to do things. Yes, how many of us wait for permission? And as leaders, step forward. And sometimes that's really goes against what we were taught when we grew up or our education background. Work redundancy, lead with enthusiasm, service to others. Oh, these are beautiful. Thank you. To listen to others and learn from them, Marian, thank you. It is, as a leader, we really spend an amazing amount of time listening to others and continually learning. Failures, Jillian, failures, job interviews, teamworks, yes. It's really not a failure. We make it sound good or bad, but it's not. If we're a leader, we have that vision, we have the passion, and we continue on. The importance, Vinette, thank you, the importance to communicate a clear vision. Think of all those leaders, whether it was our grandmother, our grandfather, they had a vision for the family and they impacted us because they taught us the values of the family. We knew how to function there so that we could lead in the future. Be confident, really knowing ourselves. And when we look at these skills that so many of you are talking about, isn't Toastmasters the perfect environment to practice this? This is perfect because we've got mentors. We're in a supportive, fun environment where we can fail. People clap even when we fail. We walk into a room and they give us a standing ovation. I don't know about you, but that's never happened in my home. And when I first came to Toastmasters and that happened, that was the first time that I'd ever experienced that kind of approval. That built my confidence, my self-esteem. So we know that leaders are readers. We need to continually learn, and we can take all those examples of people that you relate to as examples of how to continually learn and grow. We know that the district's always there to ask us and give us more opportunities to learn and grow. And I encourage you to practice saying yes when it's right for you. And also practice saying no when it's not something that you're passionate about, when it's not in your vision or not part of your journey. But don't wait for someone else's permission. Claim what you want and look at how you can achieve it. Believe in yourself and move forward. The next trait that I want to talk about is teamwork. Leaders are responsible and accountable for the end result. But years ago, one of my colleagues in Toastmasters says, Pat, if you want to be a leader, you've got to find a parade and get out in front of it. Now, there was something in that saying that just didn't resonate with me, but I couldn't forget it. I just couldn't figure out what it meant. And I think I was trying to make it mean a whole bunch more than it actually meant. What I know now, or how I interpret that now, is that I just need to find a bunch of people that are going where I'm going. And then you can be the leader, Pat. So we need to bring our vision. We need to bring the parade route when we're leading. Find a group of people. When we work in Toastmasters, we're so fortunate because the first thing we look at is our 4 core values, which are above me on the screen today. We look at integrity, respect, service, excellence. What foundations for a great team? When I look at integrity, that means that my thoughts, my words, and my actions are consistent. I have to bring, and I'm responsible for integrity with myself and with my team, with the organization, with my club, with my Toastmaster promise. Those are things that are important for me as a leader in Toastmasters. Respect. One of the things I know in teamwork is that I don't have to love everybody on my team. I don't have to be best friends with them. If that happens, that's a bonus. But I need to respect them for their individual perspectives, for their different views, for the talents that they bring to the team. And in that diversity, we are greater than we would be as single-minded people. One of the things that used to happen all the time at work when I ran a learning and development department in the corporate world is that we would meet in the room to brainstorm how to build curriculum. And we always said, we want diverse opinions in this room. Everybody needs to bring their opinions, because if we all agree to everything, there's a bunch of redundant people in this room. Teams are built because of the diversity that we bring. So appreciate those, love those, embrace those differences, and know that that adds to the strength of the team. Build that teamwork. We have so many opportunities in Toastmasters. When we join, we're part of the club team. We're part of the area team, the division team, the district team, the Region 10 team, and then the team of Toastmasters International. And we certainly experience that when we actually meet person to person or experience even over Zoom. So be part of that. In your team, as part of being a leader, remember to give recognition. And I loved the fact that all the exchange that went on before this session actually got into the formal presentation was about, oh, there's so-and-so. Oh, the talk about the new club and what happened. Oh, so-and-so did a great table topics yesterday. That helps us as leaders. And Napoleon Bonaparte actually said that people are more easily led by decoration than by authority or force. And we remember that as we lead and work with our teams. So bring teamwork to everything we do. Leadership can be a very lonely experience. And if we're actually a leader, we need a team or there's nobody to lead. We have to find a parade and get out in front of it. So I encourage you to think of how it is when we lead that team. Passion. Oh, passion. Now, here, I'm not talking about Hollywood type of passion or when you see the person across a crowded room, as the song says. I'm talking about leadership passion. Think of the passion that your leader that you have in mind, or even yourself, brings to what you're doing. Passion is absolutely essential to lead. It's what keeps me going when I'm tired. It keeps me going when I'm discouraged. It kept me going years ago when I wanted to be in district leadership, because I was passionate about Toastmasters, the difference it made in people's lives. But I was also passionate about my own development. What are you passionate about? Just take a few minutes, think about what you're passionate about. Whether it's in Toastmasters, it can be outside of Toastmasters because we lead outside of Toastmasters all the time. And let's capture some of the things that you're passionate about. You can write them down on the sheet of paper in front of you, but you can also share them in the box if you are interested in being public about it, putting it out there, what you're passionate about. Now, I know some of you, it's going to be golf. Some of it will be about your area or your division. Somebody's, oh guys, food, okay, great. I love what I do and I do what I love. Beautiful, thanks, Ted. Marion, helping others. Somesh, personal growth journey, yes. Health and fitness, helping others and grandchildren to grow. Oh, what a legacy. What a legacy to work with the young people and those children and have an influence, teaching them values and skills. And also to, when they grow up and somebody says, who's your hero? And they say, my grandpa. What a legacy that is in a family. Family, friends, yes. Confidence. Thanks, James. To be passionate about confidence, both in ourselves and others, because what I know is that when we have it, it inspires other people. When I was international president, people said, what do you want to be remembered for? And I said, the most important thing for me is that people feel seen, that they know that I care about them as a person. And that was very personal for me. I was passionate about that because most of my life before I got into Toastmasters, I was invisible. I wasn't seen. I wasn't heard. I didn't feel that anybody got me. And when I actually had somebody applaud me, give me a compliment, it was life-changing. And so I found passion in the things to help people while I helped myself. So sometimes people say, well, how do you actually decide what you're passionate about? And I go, well, let's just see what that is. If you're trying to figure out what you're passionate about, look at where you spend your time and where you spend your money. So for some of you, that's going to be a closet full of sweaters. Some of you, that's going to be a closet full of shoes. Some of you is going to be the car that you drive. Some of it's going to be the golf clubs that you have. And some of it's going to be the collection of friends that you have, or how many DTMs you have. It can be whatever is passion for you. No judgment on that, but stay connected to your passion, because I love to see people develop and grow. I love to find the potential in people and help them see the potential in them. Early in my Toastmastering, I had a past international president come up to me when I was an area director and said to me, you know what, someday you could be a district director. Well, it didn't mean anything at the time because I had to figure out what that was. But when I figured it out, I went, whoa, I've just been told, given a vision of something I could live up to. And that inspired me. So I encourage us to share our passion, if it's about other people, to share the vision that we see for them, to see the greatness in them, and help them see what we see in them. Hold people to a high standard. Give people something to live up to, not down to. Let them know the things that they are so capable of. Passion helps us focus. It helps us to keep going when we're tired and road weary. Passion, it isn't always noisy and aggressive. In fact, it can be very quiet. I would suspect that every one of those leaders that you relate myself included, that they had passion. And they didn't have to have a reminder every day to do something towards their goals. The next trait that I want to talk about is authenticity. Authenticity is a trait that I find super appealing in a leader. Now, I know that your grandpa or your grandma or your parent or the leaders, Martin Luther King, those people that you named were authentic. They knew themselves and they know themselves. Groucho Marx said, "Be yourself. Everyone else is taken." I love that quotation. You are perfect. You're the perfect James version of James. You're the perfect Gerard version of Gerard. Daniel is perfect as Daniel, just the way you are. And Brenda, how could we improve on Brenda? Brenda's Brenda, authentically Brenda. A work in progress, each one of us, but perfect the way we are when we're authentic. Now, my experience with authenticity is that it's a continuous journey. It's not something we have or we don't have. It's a practice. I believe it's a conscious choice. Do we put those barriers around us and hold everybody away? Do we pull down our own barriers and be vulnerable, expose who we are, tell our stories, share our experiences, share our failures so people can learn from it? That our ego doesn't get in the way of us learning and growing. We have to let go of what we know to reach for things that we don't know. Let our true selves be seen because we're masterpieces. Some people don't like Picasso. Other people say the greatest art in the world ever. Some people look at Pat Johnson and go, I don't like it. Pat Johnson looks at Pat Johnson and says, work in progress, not bad for an old girl. Be authentic. Bring your humor, bring your personality. Be willing to be the person you are and share it with others. One of the things that I've learned as a leader, and I share with you, is that somebody out there wants to be just like you when they grow up. Now, that's kind of hard with some of us because some of us are never planning to grow up. So how can people be like us when they grow up when we're never going to grow up? But maybe that's what they want to do also. So challenge your ego. Don't let it set you aside from everyone else. Bring your heart, bring your personality, bring all of you to leadership. And let people look at you and see your warts, see your cracks, see your shortcomings, because then it encourages them. They go, if she can be international president, anybody can be international president. If they can be a district director, I could be a district director. That's what we want to do. We want to bring human beings into here. We don't want to bring perfection, some unreachable person. Be yourself. Do the work to be authentic. When I was international president, one of the greatest gifts and the learnings that I took away from that, I found my goof, my inner goof. Now, I always knew it was there, but I held it back and I didn't always bring it to the stage or to my talks or to my friends. My friends knew it was there. But when I was international president, because of the pressures day by day by day, and it was every day, 365, however many days there were in that year, it was on. And I can't not be myself when it's to that intensity. And so I found that I had to be real, that I had to bring myself, so that I could continue to go. It was a gift to just have fun with the goof that was in me and go, you know what? I love it. I love myself. Not from an ego perspective, but just appreciating that I'm different, I'm unique, just as you are, just as those people that you hold as heroes or as leaders in your mind, just as you are in other people's minds. There's people in this group today that are holding some of you as examples of leadership because of your authenticity, because of your connection. And we don't have to be all right and have all the right answers. Leaders don't need all the answers, but we need to know who we are. Remember, when we look at science of communication and connection, what percentage is about the words that we say? Like about 7%. And the rest is who we are, the energy, the body language, the connection that we have with people. That tells us, that's a good clue of what we need to do as a leader. Don't worry so much about the words, but open your heart, talk out of the fullness of your heart, connect with the people. It's sometimes, I believe, easier to fool ourselves than it is to fool others. We tell ourselves stories and we believe them. Other people go, I don't think that's the truth. That doesn't resonate with me. I'm not sure. And so we as human beings have great antenna, great radar to detect the truth and the authenticity of a person. Even as a competitive speaker, if somebody stands up on the stage, how many times we've sat back and went, I just don't connect. And for me, it's one of the most important things when I listen to somebody speak is, are they real? Are they authentic? Have they done that inner work? And see, I believe that's one of the greatest challenges as a leader, because nobody else can do that work for us. But we can have great mentors that really encourage us, that help us dig, and we learn to be authentic. They help us uncover and to develop that real person there. Embrace who it is and who you are. Absolutely. So E.E. Cummings wrote regarding authenticity, to be nobody but yourself in a world which is doing its best night and day to make you everybody but yourself means to fight the hardest battle which any human being can fight and never stop fighting. So we find ourselves all the time being pushed into categories, being squeezed into some position, somebody else's expectations. And the greatest gift that you can give yourself is to find out who you really are, what you're passionate about, what you really want to do, who you really are when you come to leadership. Authenticity is not always a safe option, but I believe it's the only option. I don't believe that your leaders, the leaders that you relate to, were safe, took the safe way. Let's look at courage. Well, this word, interestingly enough, is based on the root of the word cur. So if we look at courage, it's the Latin word cur for heart. And this originally meant to speak one's mind by telling all one's heart. Today, we tend to think of courage as some heroic behavior, but I want to suggest that the original meaning is more closely aligned with who we want to be as leaders. We see courage around us all the time, don't we? We see it in those leaders, in our family leaders, our world leaders, our leaders in Toastmasters. And we know that it takes courage. This is something we can develop, and we do develop in Toastmasters, to continually challenge ourselves. As leaders, we're called to do the right thing, to be courageous. And again, in Toastmasters, it's a great place to practice because we get the support behind us with our policies, our procedures, our bylaws, our core values, our missions. It's a great platform to stand on when we get to practice courageous behavior, to do the right thing. Fellow Toastmasters and friends, as leaders, we need to build our courage. And it builds because we know who we are, and we know we have the strength around us. We have the people around us. We're learning and growing. And the final trait that I want to leave with you today is to live like a leader. And what does that mean? I encourage you to look at your life balance. I know some people that have neglected their families, their communities, their work to be a Toastmaster. I don't think that was Smedley's intention. I believe that we walk into a Toastmaster club, at least the most of us did, looking for skills to support us in our life, not to give our life over to Toastmasters. So keep it in perspective. Look after your physical, your mental, your emotional, your spiritual world so that you can lead. As leaders, when we bring our heart, we must care about ourselves and for ourselves. Remember to laugh, have friends, be goofy, skip down the street, sing songs in public when you can't carry a tune. Eat well, nourish your body and your brain, drink lots of water. And I'm not a health expert, but these are things that are important as leaders to care for ourselves. Move your body so your brain works as well. Foster friendship and love. Don't forget to hug people. I'm a hugger. And so hug people if that's your thing. Make sure you ask permission if you haven't done it before, because somebody might not appreciate it and might say that's disrespectful, but ask permission. The world's full of people that would love a hug, especially nowadays, but we're all storing them up, right? The next convention that we're together is going to be a hug fest. It'll be kind of crazy times. But back to living like a leader, be disciplined. Build a priority list every day. Take a bite out of that elephant of leadership where you're headed. Do something today that takes you towards your goal, and build those interpersonal relationships, because those people will be with you till the end of your life. I think back on people that I served on the board with, people that I served at the district level with, who are still in my life, people that mentored me, people that supported me, people that disagreed with me and caused me to grow and change. Go from unconscious living to conscious living. Be aware of the attitude you bring. Do you become victim of what's happening around you, or do you empower yourself as a leader and say, I can do something to change that, rather than, oh, that's just the way it always is? Make a conscious choice to make a difference. Be impeccable in your word as a leader. Set high standards for yourself and others. Walk your talk. Respect yourself. Remain self-aware. Spend time in reflection. Spend those quiet times so that you can regenerate and reinforce yourself. Commit your whole self to your leadership journey. Be all in to be the best version of you that you can create. Because you know what? Someone's probably watching you and wants to be just like you if and when you grow up, and if and when they grow up. So I encourage you as a leader to lead with your heart. And I'll leave you with, because we're in District 71, I have to sing. So I leave you with the words of a song. Lead, lead with your heart. It's the one thing you can trust to always come from love, and it will shine right through the dark like a northern star to show you what is true. You'll never lose if only you lead with your heart. Fellow Toastmasters, lead with your heart. Mr. Program Quality Director.
Thank you very much, Pat Johnson. That's the best of anything that I've heard in terms of reconnecting us to a leadership journey. And I've made sheets of notes and take me right back to school, and that's a humbling experience. It's wonderful. I'd now like to throw open the floor for questions, and once the questions are over, we may be able to slide out for our break a bit earlier. So, questions.
Pat, can I ask you a question?
Absolutely.
Sean here. Of all the aspects that you identified to be a leader, what would you say the number one is? If you were to pick one out of passion, courage, all the rest of the teamwork, etc., which one is absolutely crucial? I know they're all very important because they come together as a sort of they're like a cement mixer. They're all in there.
Yeah. I think authenticity for me currently is the highest. I think that it helps people relate to us. And I think it also allows us to continually lead because we're in touch with who we are and we're not being false or trying to fit into somebody else's vision of ourselves. I think that it allows us to identify why we're leading. And so that fuels us, that fuels the passion, that gives us what we need to keep going. Yes, thanks.
And the Groucho Marx is very, very applicable, isn't it?
It sure is, yes.
Yeah, it really sums the whole thing up, yeah.
Yeah,
thank you,
Sean.
Pat.
Thanks, Sean.
Paul O'Mahony, I believe you've got a hand up on the participants list.
Thanks very much, Daniel. Pat, in terms of breaking out of your current mindset and moving into being uncomfortable, I'd welcome a couple of tips from you on how to recognize groupthink in a leadership situation where you're collaborating with others.
Oh, one of the things that, not an easy question, but thank you, Paul. I would expect nothing else. I think that what I watch for is when we're all going, yeah, that's a good idea. Oh yeah, let's do what Paul wants. And then I would give permission to, let's be devil's advocates. And that's one of the things that I love to do. The other thing that is really important for me is to then, when we're looking at a certain situation, is to step way back from it, back up way far from it and say, what's the projection of this? Where's this potentially taking us? And looking at the global view. And sometimes that brings things into focus that wouldn't have otherwise, when we've got the looking at what's right here operationally, and then looking up strategically and going, whoa, the projection's way over here. And that breaks us out into providing a much wider scope for us to look at a concept or an idea. So in coaching, we talk about it getting altitude. And sometimes I've actually had to go up and stand on top of a hill and literally go physically and stand on a hill and look out at the ocean to get a global perspective or altitude on something, because I've got myopic about it.
I'm very grateful for that response. Thank you.
Thanks, Paul. Thanks, Paul.
Okay, I can see in participants, Elizabeth Jordan has raised her hand.
Hi, Elizabeth.
Thank you. Pat, thanks for that truly inspirational speech. I was completely taken aback by, no, not taken aback, impressed by how calmly you took your disappointments when you didn't become the district leader. And as a leader, one faces disappointment, one faces conflict, one faces all sorts of difficulties. Please, can you again talk about how one can handle that in the way that you did? Because it was really quite impressive.
It sounds impressive now, Elizabeth. It wasn't so beautiful at the moment. It was, first of all, I would say that my personal philosophical view is that it's our role to go to a door in life as we go through the journey of life, and there's doors along the way. And when I go to a door and I try to open the door and it doesn't open, then I believe there's something else for me, that's not my path at that time. That door may reappear later, but for now, that's not my experience. So I have that belief. And so that stands me, while it hurts, there's some vulnerability in there, but I believe that then for me, this isn't the time. And so I look around and say, what am I meant to be doing? Which door is going to open for me? So then I go looking for another door. And what I know when I look back, years ago, an anthropologist, and I'm sorry, I can't remember her name, but she said that we as human beings so much can, unfortunately, can't live our lives backwards. But when we have the experience today, we don't understand why. But if we stop and look back 5 years, 10 years from now, we go, oh, that's why that happened. If that wouldn't have happened, I would have ended up over here and I wouldn't have got this. So I have a very philosophical, personal view on that there was a reason for it, for a redirection. And when I look back now, I look at the timing, and if I would have been in the district team then, it would have been a total different experience, because I wouldn't have had the lessons that I had along the way. The timing for being on the board may not have worked out. Being international president might not have worked out. Might not have been in a place in my career that I could have had that time, confidence, and knowledge to be those roles. So I don't believe there's any accidents. I think we have the responsibility to go to the doors, attempt to open them, and if not, know that there's something bigger and better waiting for us. Thanks, Elizabeth.
Thank you. And I see Division Director D. Samesh has got his hand out.
Thank you.
Hi, Samesh.
Thank you very much, Pat, for a great presentation. You are very soothing, calm, and the way you're presenting, we could probably hear for the whole day or as long as we can, and we still will keep hearing you. So excellent. Thank you so much for the presentation. One thing that I wanted to ask you was, you were talking about being ourselves, we being ourselves, and a work in progress. So the question is how, because, as human beings and as people who have been, in the olden days, we were like hunters, and we have got this fight and flight kind of mode, where we are always, unfortunately, looking for negative aspects rather than positive. So how do we see the perfection in us and others rather than the imperfection in us and others? Keep looking at the positives. you have any tips on that? Thank you.
Well, I guess part of it for me is training, because I'm a personal coach. And so I work with people, and my goal is to encourage people to find their highest and best. And what I know is that I can see your highest and best faster than you can. So to surround ourselves with people who believe in our highest and best. So I had the good fortune of having a mentor when I first got when I finally got elected to the district team. And when I was the club growth director, I met Ted Corcoran at an international convention and asked him to be my mentor. And so he mentored me throughout my district leadership journey and my ID journey as international director, and then onto the executive committee and into international president role. It was ideal because Ted could see things in me that I couldn't see, but he helped me. He held up the mirror and he said, here's some things that you do well. Here's some things that you can work on. And so he became the mirror for me. And some of them I could see right away, and some of them took a long, long time for me to grow internally to see them. So surround yourself, Samesh, with people who believe in you, who see the greatness in you and will mirror it back. And likewise, continually look for the good and the strengths in people and practice that for you. Everybody has the highest and best. And we recognize it. When people walk into a room, we go, whoa, there's a powerful person. Oh, look at how that person, people just flock to them. We see that, right? We see their heart, we see their brilliance, we see their personalities, we see their gentleness, their loving nature, all those things we instantly see. And so we don't see those so easily when we stand in front of the mirror and look at Samesh or Pat and go, oh, well, that doesn't look very good, or you're right. But we don't do that to other people. So surround yourself with the people that will hold you to a high standard and see your highest and best and reflect it back for you.
Thank you, Pat.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Division Director C. Marion has her hand raised.
Pat, thank you so much. That was absolutely amazing. And
Thanks,
as a
Marion.
fellow coach, I could really relate to a lot you were saying. But what I find when I'm working a lot with people, they suffer from what I call the curse of lovely. They want to be liked by everyone.
Mhm.
And what I find as a leader, sometimes you have to be prepared. If you are coming from your true self and that authenticity that you talk about, you have to be able to stand up and say what you believe in and not be afraid that others are not going to agree with you. And I think that comes across very much in your talk today about authenticity. So what I would say to people as a leader, don't be afraid to speak your own truth. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. And that's part of the courage that I had to develop. And, I was so grateful that I got to practice in Toastmasters, where there are strong foundations, that sometimes I had to stand at a decision that was the right decision for the organization. It wasn't necessarily the decision I wanted to make, but it was the right decision. And so I learned courage by being a leader and being able to say, this is what's best for the organization. It's not going to be easy necessarily. It's not the popular choice, but it's the right choice. And I think as, one of the things that I learned relating to this, Marion, is that I didn't get all the training to be a leader in Toastmasters, but Toastmasters highlighted what I needed training in. And so I took a lot of coaching training. I went and got a conflict resolution, mediation, negotiation certificate from the Justice Institute because I was afraid of conflict. I was afraid of not being liked. And you can't lead fearing that you're not going to be liked, because somebody in the audience is going to not like you. If we look at the bell curve, like 20% don't like you when you walk out, 20% will never abandon you. It doesn't matter if you fall flat on your face, they'll love you to ever. And the rest, the 60% are sitting there going, well, show me what you got and I'll make up my mind. So right at the very beginning, we have those odds. And so we have to do the right thing at the right time. That's part of leadership. So yeah, thank you for that.
Thank you so much, Pat. That's excellent. Thank you.
Thank you for being a leader, Marion, and a coach.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So, unless there are any further questions, Michael, May, you had your hand up at one point, did you? Is it still there?
Yeah, I'll chip in there, Daniel. Thanks. It may have been covered already, but thank you so much, Pat, for a great talk. Really enjoyed it. It's just, for me, it's a comment, I suppose, and just to get your feedback on the comment. One of the important traits of a leader that I've kind of observed is perseverance. And it especially relates to our current situation where we've got our goals, but they're kind of far out there somewhere and we're trying to reach out to them. So have you any tips on perseverance for us as we face the next 3 or 4 months of our leadership roles?
Yes, thank you for that, Michael. I really believe that we're building resilience as leaders these days. And I think in order to do that, it's so important to stay in touch with our vision and what we're passionate about on a daily basis. Remind yourself why you're doing this task, because it's connected to that vision. I heard Gerard, a district director, talk about being Smedley's district, being Smedley's distinguished district. That's a vision that today we do this because that's our ultimate goal. If you want to be a distinguished division, that's your vision. So today it drives that task. Reconnect with your why for Toastmasters. Why are you in leadership? Why are you doing this? So that fuels us. And then connect to your passion, whatever brought you to leadership, whether that's supporting other people in developing. I think that as division directors, one of the most fabulous gifts that we can give the district is to train our area directors to find their authentic leader in them. And as a result, we build succession because they then want to go on. When we show them who the greatest and best in them, they can see themselves going on. It's like the person that walked up to me and said, as an area director, someday you could be district director. They didn't tell me I could be international president. But, so I think connect with your why you're in Toastmasters, why you're doing what you're doing. Find your passion and why it's connected to the why. And then stay connected to the vision that you have, both for your own personal development, but also your team and the larger team at the district level. And keep at it. Yeah. It's like bad weather. If you're a dedicated jogger, it doesn't matter if it's raining. You go out because you've got a vision, you've got a goal, you're passionate. Doesn't matter. Those become, that's just circumstance. And what I know also, just share this quickly, is how we show up in leadership is how we show up in our lives. So if we're quickly bumped off the path, we go, oh, I'm going to be a runner, and we last for a day or two, or maybe a week, and we give it up. That's probably how we're going to show up in other areas of our life. So we show up the same. We're consistent. So when we want to make a change, we have to make incremental changes. And it's just making the changes that we need to get where we want to go. But thanks for a real relevant question, Michael. Hopefully that helps. Thanks.
I think we'll call time on the questions. It's been a wonderful session this morning. I've really enjoyed it a lot. And it's so true about the passion angle. And if we lose sight of that, the lights go out, basically. Because in my experience, and reconnecting with the why, when you've hit passion, you're getting more energy out of what you're doing than what you're putting in, and you know instantly when you've hit that, and that is a great bellwether. Once you come out of meetings feeling exhausted, worse than you went in, you know that meeting was wrong for you. And as Steve Jobs says, just imagine if this is your last day on Earth, was that meeting good for you?